Hey guys, I'm Chris with Dream Studios. I am back with a new video. This time we are doing a build-up demonstration. So let's go ahead and get cracking. Welcome to the studio scale Alien Narcissus build-up instruction series. This is episode 1 of a multi-part series. This is for those who have obtained or are thinking of acquiring this raw, updated, analog kit. I have links in the video description where to find the build blog for this project. I have an entire series on the subject. In this episode, I introduce the model, noting that this kit won't be for everyone because of its handmade analog nature. Then we set into trimming and assembling the parts. I create a suitable display base and mount Panavice hardware. By the end of this video, the model is fully assembled and base painted, ready for weathering and decals, which we'll save for episode 2 of this build-up series. Let's get started. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first entry into the Narcissus build-up, the actual build-up tutorial for the Alien Narcissus. What you see laid out here are the two versions of this kit. There is the standard version. This is the closed up version. The top and bottom holes are molded as one piece. I'm not going to be installing any electronics or any special features into this version of the build-up. That's what I'm doing in this video, or a series of videos. So it'll be a fairly straightforward build. Then we're going to jump into, in a separate video, the Deluxe Narcissus. Now this one is fitted with an interior. It has a removable top panel, you see back there. And this one will have a interior cockpit module. You'll be able to look down into the canopy. I'll be hollowing out the canopy window so you can look down into that cockpit. I'll be installing lights into the front, into the engines. There'll be a whole lighting system and a fan system in here. I'm planning on installing a aluminum cross beam inside here, and then an aluminum beam coming down to an aluminum stand. Much more involved build. I'm saving that one for last. So we are going to be starting with this standard version of the Narcissus, studio scale. Here's all the parts laid out. It seems like it's going to be an overwhelming build, but it's not really. It's really not a whole lot of parts. And the assembly is pretty basic. There's no seam lines to clean up. Everything is covered up with laser cut components. I made mention earlier in this video in the intro that there's a whole series that I did last year on this Narcissus, and it runs you through all these parts and how they go together. I review all the resin 3D printed parts. I've got this alien guy. Actually, I think I might do him for this build. I might install a little alien xenomorph feature on the back of him. But that is my little basic intro. I'm going to take a breath here and put the deluxe one away, and we're going to concentrate on building the standard version of the Narcissus. Okay guys, you ready? Here we go. Now before I start this tutorial, I want to preface that this kit is not a 3D designed, 3D printed part. This has heritage back to the filming model made for Aliens. So you may need to smooth out a few of the panel lines. You know, it's got artifacts from being a handmade model. There's a little bit of an uneven edge here. As I said, there's a few panels that need to be smoothed out. Just work it as far as you want to go. But just keep in mind, you guys, this is not a 3D printed model. Everyone's so used to having perfect parts nowadays. Well, this kit might not be for you. This is more of a handmade model. So if you're after like a totally perfect hull, perfect parts, this might not be the kit for you. I think it's a beautiful kit. I think this is going to turn out to be just a remarkable build-up. But again, I want to preface that this is not a 3D printed parts. Not everything is even. Not everything is perfectly symmetrical. So There you go. Let's go ahead and start up this build. Let's go ahead and start our assembly with the nose cone. So locate these parts. The nose cone itself, these two little guys, these two little tank pieces, they're like a little triple tank part. This Resin 3D 8-rad piece, it's a great little piece. It's actually modeled inside and out. This brick, these two, I think this is an 8-rad, and I think there's a Panzer piece. So these two guys and your two nose cone. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parts. Now your 8-rad and Panzer piece, these are sourced from the actual real parts used on the original Narcissus. I molded these long, so just kind of fit that right up to that edge. So those two little knob parts go right to that edge. It's a little bit long here, so I'm just going to make a pencil line to trim that. This is that Panzer piece. This goes here on the bottom slot. Again, I'm going to put him right up on the edge. Little pencil line here, so I know to trim that off. This guy is going to glue right inside of here. He needs a little bit, actually he doesn't, he needs no trimming, and he's going to fit right into the middle. So let's go ahead and get those 3 parts on there. And trimming, you can do this by hand. You can make a little sanding block, or you can take them out to a belt sander, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to trim these two guys, a little bit of flashing here on the bottom, and those go inside of those nose inserts. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that this bottom of the nose is nice and flush flat. I'm going to trim these 2 pieces down to that little pencil line, and then trim the bottoms. And then lastly, these 2 inserts, little nozzle inserts. What I'm doing here, if you can see it, let me make sure I'm in focus here. What I'm doing here is using a little bit of thin CA out of a little pipette tool, this guy. And I'm really making sure, because it's hollow on the inside of this 8-rad piece, it's really making sure that I got all those corners touching and adhered. And I didn't explain what I was using with the spray. This is a spray kicker, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it a quick accelerant kick, and that is it for this nose cone. Okay, here's all the parts assembled on the nose cone. When I do the deluxe version, I'll be drilling into this to insert an LED inside of that nozzle, but this is the basic version, so we're not doing LEDs. Here's your resin part, and what this looks like primered, I did one of these a few months ago, is here's what we're looking like. Really quick and easy. The reason that I engineered these pieces separately is I just wanted to keep the parts nice and clean, keep them separate. So if I ever had to remaster just those individual parts, I can just do those, and this part stays nice and clean each time. Alright, so that quickly, our nose is finished. So let's get on to the body. Anytime you're working on this body, I recommend that you put down a padding layer. We've got an old sheet, got some bubble wrap, because we've got some detail under here that we don't want to damage. So I'm going to keep it nice and padded up. And let's go ahead and start working on this body. This body has a seam line that's very easy to clean. It runs laterally across this line. That entire seam line is covered up in the next step with this laser cut strip. But first we need to flatten out the seam line so it comes all the way across the body at this line. I use a palm sander to take care of that step. This is a pneumatic reciprocating saw. I only got this last year. I don't use it very often, but to get something like this off really fast, this is what you want. When I do my build-up for the deluxe version of this Narcissus, we'll be using this a lot. So, it's really easy. It's kind of noisy. Actually, less noisy than a sander. But watch this. I'm going to shave this away like butter. Alright, just like that. This is really fast. It is so quick. And then to finish the flush surface, and there we have it. That is done. And this will now be ready to accept this piece, but I'll get to this a little bit later, this end cap. This kit comes with a total of 6 laser cut parts for the edge trim. These are, I believe, 040 gauge, beautifully laser cut. These trim out the edges, so where that division line was is where you're going to use this big long strip. Well, this is hard to film because this is so big. But your big long strip here at the front is using this. These are trimmed, these are cut a little bit long, so you may need to trim them a little bit. So that's where the long piece goes. Your second medium-sized piece goes here on this edge. And take note that there's a curved edge here. That curved edge butts up against that knob. Okay, so that's that. And then the last one is this shorter knob, and again, take note that there is a curved edge, and that curved edge butts up against the knob on this side, so that finishes that little length right here, right there. Okay, so 6 total pieces go on for edge trim. Okay, as you saw me doing there, I was using my regular CA. I was also using the extra thin CA. And got a couple little paint splobs on here, so I'm just going to sand those off real quick. I'm going to grab my 500 grit paper, give it a polish here and here. Okay, so in just a couple of minutes I installed this trim and that trim. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. The other guys, this long one, just go slow and easy. and you'll get her done. I'm going to probably have this finished and ready for the next step in about 10 minutes. Okay, I have all my trim installed. And as a side note, when you do this, lay your model vertically. Lay it on its side. So just a lot easier to work with. This is an end cap. This is going to live here in the end. I don't think I'm going to put that on yet because I'm still going to be rolling this model around. So I'm going to save these two guys for later. And I think what I'll do now is I think I may primer this model. I'm going to primer this entire part and the nose cone gray, just so I can see anything that might need correction. It's going to let you see the details a little more clearly too. But mostly, I need to see what I'm doing, and this gray is going to help considerably. So, nose cone and holes, primer gray. Okay, parts are primered gray. I did a little round of cleaning on this. I had a couple paint drips from the trim I put on, but we're looking really good. Now it's time to start thinking about a base. I decided to mount this model from the bottom, from the midsection there at the bottom. So I decided to beef up that bottom by drilling a hole through here. I poured in some resin. You could use epoxy. Hell, you could use plaster if you wanted to, just to strengthen up that center area right there. That's your balance point, your mount point right there, that square. So I'm going to mount into that using a Panavice mount. This is it's a medium-sized Panavice mount available on Amazon. I think these are something like 24, 25 bucks. So I'm going to be building a base to mount this to, and then that plate will mount on the bottom of the model. Oi, this thing is heavy. So the idea, guys, is the Panavice mount will mount to the top of that, and I'll disconnect that top plate and mount it to the bottom of the model. And I'll go ahead and paint this base black so it's a little more presentable. But it's just a makeshift base. It's heavy. It's going to provide plenty of support. I'm using 2-inch wood screws to mount this. I know it's kind of excessive, but I really want that Panavice mount to dig in hard. Okay, there is our mount. Now we grab this top guy and mount him to the bottom of our Narcissus. Alright, it is time to put the back cap on the aft brick. There's a little stamp that has my name on the top of this piece. That's the top. So it takes a little bit of trimming. I had a file and did a little bit of Dremel work, and I just kind of cleaned up these edges, made them really straight. And I trimmed the sides just a little bit on the sander, and it fits pretty well. So that's going to glue in right there. And then let me show you these two pieces. Find these guys in your kit. There's two laser cut parts. One's a little bit different than the other. That little tab there is a bit wider on one side. The wider tab goes to starboard. So here's your laser cut part. Here's how this fits. This will close up that gappage, just like that. And on the opposite side, same thing. There's a little bit of gappage here, and this laser cut part will slide right in there to cover that gap. Just kind of press it in there. I don't think it needs any trimming. But once I get all this glued in here, it'll be nice and tight. Once I have this glued in place, I can attach this, I think it's a vector thruster, little side thruster. That glues on right there, and that little triangular end cap. And then here you're going to use this little guy, another vector thruster. One thing you want to do with these vector thrusters here is grind these almost flush to the body. They're molded long, just for molding purposes, but grind them before you put that end cap, almost flush. I'm also going to take this opportunity to glue this cap into place. Okay, the nose is now attached. I didn't put it on camera because I wanted to concentrate, but I've got a metal pin in there. I think it's a 5/8 inch pin. And then I secured the rest of it with CA glue. And right now I'm spray kicking. Make sure that it adheres properly. But yeah, nose cone is on. Back assembly is on. I think it's time to mount this. Oh yeah, that is very good bite. I am not worried about the stability of this on that pan of ice mount at all. And that guy is mounted and extremely stable. Love it. There's a lot of detail that has to happen underneath, but now with this mount in place, it'll actually be protected. It won't be hitting the bench as much. So here we are so far. Really looking forward to getting this detail on here. Alright, we are getting really far along. We only have a few more details to add. The engine nozzles, the engine nozzle inserts, the side clamps, a couple fins underneath, and the windows. What I'm doing here is I'm going to use a little piece of evergreen styrene to cover up just a couple little trim areas. I'm going to trim this little piece here at the back section underneath. I'm going to trim this area. And then generally, since everything's in primer now, I'm going to go over my surfaces, just inspect. If I have any glue drips, I'm going to clean them up. If I see any areas that need smoothing, I'll get those smoothed out and get this guy ready for paint. And guys, just a reminder, when you're building this, feel free to customize as you wish. I felt like I needed a little bit of a transition right here, so I created that styrene panel just to blend it a little bit better. Yeah, so and this is what you're going to look like when you start cleaning up this model a little bit more. It's going to start looking ugly again, but a coat of primer will take care of that, and it'll let us know any additional work we need to do. And just remember, keep those side docking clamps separate until you're all done. In your kit, locate these three parts. You're going to glue these two tabs onto the ends of this and end up with this. Now trim each of your engine bells flat. Trim these two guys flat. Your two docking clamps flat. And these two detail pieces flat. Find and trim these two little detail parts, and they live right here and there. There is some really, really exciting detail coming up for these engines, but we're going to get to those in a few minutes after we attach a few more parts. Okay, working our way to the back of the ship, we have this dude that we assembled a few minutes ago. He installs right here. He's raised up a little bit, so you might put a little riser here, or just when you glue it, just kind of hold it up. It kind of sits up a little bit. Okay, so we have that guy. Then we have these. Now you'll notice there's a channel, an opening here. It runs across this line. That's where he lives. He nests perfect right there. Same on the other side. There's a blank space here. That's where he lives. I could probably lift this model with these tabs, but I would still be careful when you're handling this model not to put too much pressure on these guys. Okay, man, this is getting real. We can now apply our side clamps. Since we won't be rolling this model around much anymore on both sides, they live right there in the center. Since it's going to be difficult to paint inside the nooks and crannies after the engines are installed, it'll be really hard to paint inside here. I'm going to pre-paint white this back area, at least around these engines, so I can install these guys. And these guys have this clear insert. When I do the deluxe version, this is translucent, so you'll be able to light this. I'm not doing electronics in this, so what I'll probably do is just pre-paint these white and just drop that clear part in. I'm not sure if I'm going to paint inside there or not. Haven't made that call yet. But let's go ahead and get this white so we can install these engine nozzles. I'm going to prep each of these translucent inserts with a little bit of white paint just on the tips. I'm just touching my finger into some loose acrylic paint and just touching these ends just to get the ends white. I did some messing around with some tests yesterday, and I think I might do this when I light the engines also. Let's just make them opaque white in the front so that when they insert into the engines you get that look. And I think at first I'm not going to weather these. I'm going to glue these in place so they just drop right in. Bam. Alright, the engines are all in place. We have 4 more pieces to install on the underside, these guys. We're using this wonderful 3D printed piece, and it's going to live here, butting right up against those tabs. I have this pre-painted front and back, and then on top of that goes this guy. And if you see here, he's got a little notch here that rests on the body notch here. Before I glue these guys on, I am going to pre-paint this white because that'll be a tough area to reach. I'm going to attach these shrouds first. I made a tiny little adjustment here. I sanded down this edge just a tiny bit. But if you get one of these kits, I'll probably have already made that adjustment to the 3D file and 3D printed the corrected version. So I'm applying some CA here to these edges. And we're going to lay him down first. Really simple placement. Just get him down. Then we're going to lay this guy on secondly. He's going to attach and contact here at the tips and the front and inside here. I have some CA here off to the side on a piece of styrene. Okay, so he'll make contact there and there. Let's get him in here. And he lives right there. The moment of truth is upon us. This whole thing goes white now. Okay, mister, the bottom is all detailed out. Everything is painted, looking glorious. When it's white, you might be able to pick out a few little areas that need a little more touch up. So just touch them up, repaint them white, and you're good to go. So this is all assembled. There's still a few more things we need to do on this before we can weather it. One of the things is the canopy windows. So there are this set of canopy windows. I'm going to show you how to deal with those. And then on the back, when I take this apart, you'll be able to see it. But there's a little octagonal shaped window that goes right there. I don't know if I'm tackling it in this video or a future video, but here are the decals. A lot of different decals to deal with. But let's go ahead and concentrate on these windows. The canopy windows and the rear hatch window. The first thing I'm going to do with these windows is remove the rear hatch piece. And let me use this as a small example of what you'll do. Okay, here's how I'm going to tell the top from the bottom for this rear window piece. It'll fit best either this way or that way, so I'll just give both ways a try. And that right there, already, I can tell, is a perfect fit. Let's just for kicks try it the other way. Doesn't fit as great, still fits okay. This is the best fit. So I am going to label this with an O for out. That means I'm going to paint this side of that window. And then when that paint is done drying, I'll unmask it and install this guy right there. So we want to make sure that when we take these apart, we label, or actually, yeah, we're going to really want to keep it straight. So when I take it off, I want to know that this is the top, this is the bottom. This is what gets the coat of paint. Just fit them to your canopy, and you'll know which is which. And also, bear in mind that this is 2 layers of protective tape. There's a clear layer here. Doesn't look like there is, but there really is. So make sure you peel that off before you spray paint this black from the inside, and then it mounts outside facing out. Okay, let me show you another way how not to get mixed up. So this window is on the end. It can either fit here or it can fit here. Because this is a handmade model, they're going to fit better on one side than the other. So this way is not a bad fit. Let's try it on this side. Perfect. Even better. So I know now that that is the top. So I want to paint the inside of this black. I'm making a big deal out of this so that you guys don't have to gloss coat your canopies. If you paint it black here, and then after that's painted, you remove that protective tape, you'll have a nice, shiny, glass-like canopy window. Alright, so that's what we're doing for all these. I'm going to make a little mark on this. I'm going to put these down on some double stick tape. Paint it black. We're ready for the last part of assembly. I'm going to spray these black. Just one coat will do it. Any kind of black you have will work. It doesn't have to be glossy. It could be flat. It doesn't matter, because when we look at it from behind, it'll automatically be nice and glossy. Nice and glassy, I should say. I'm using quick dry tacky glue. And let it dry. Alright, I am installing these canopy windows. I'm using a bit of this sticky tack. I don't know what you call this. It's like a modeler's sticky tack. It doesn't leave any residue on these acrylic pieces. This is laser cut PETG, by the way. This comes with your kit. So I'm just going to go ahead and place him each window one at a time. And these, by the way, need a little bit of trimming. I trimmed the bottom on a few of these. They just needed to be fit a little bit tighter by trimming the bottom of those laser cut parts. Okay, same process. Alright, so just repeat that for all your windows, and that'll take care of your canopy. Okay, canopy's installed. What do you think? For a closed off cockpit, that is just a really great effect. Back window in place, hatch, that is, back hatch. While working on this first build-up, there's two parts I realized I needed to make. One of them is this tiny dude, and he lives here, butting up against that part right there. So there's two of these new parts in the new kit, and there's two of these. These are going to live inside the nose cone, if I can get an angle on this. So it's a look, a little detail, and actually this detail will be backlit with an LED. So if you can tell, there's slots in this. If you can see these slots. So those will be backlit with an LED in place, and if you're not lighting it, it's just a good little piece that's in there. And actually, I'm not going to paint these. I think I'm just going to leave these gray, and they're both going to live inside those nose cone openings. Now there is just one last thing I'm going to do on this before I start in with the weathering and the decals, and that is I'm going to kit bash inside this a little bit. This is the mechanical pit that you see in Aliens. I didn't modify this pit, so this, all these details, including the R2-D2 boot that's on the wrong side. That's a boot for R2-D2, by the way, the model makers used in Alien. When they made the Aliens version, which this body is based on, they put that boot on the wrong end. It's supposed to be on this end. But I kept this as a little watermark, a little telltale sign of the history of this piece. It's the Aliens pit. So I'm going to kit bash in here a little bit into that pit, just a tiny bit, just so it matches a little bit more accurately. This is the pit that I 3D modeled. This comes with the deluxe version of this Narcissus. So this one's much more accurate. But for this, I'm going to kit bash a tiny bit. I'll add a few of these little greebly parts. I happen to have a huge stash of greebles. So I'll just grab a couple pieces here and there, dot them in here and there. I might add a pipe or two just to dress that a tiny bit more. Then we are done with the assembly and we are ready to weather and apply decals. That was really fun to do. Guys, there's two more steps on this. Decals, I've got water slide decals that we're going to apply. There's a lot of them that go on this surface. We're going to do some detail airbrushing, weathering, graphite powders, mostly doing the weathering. Maybe a little bit of oil paints down in some of the details on the underside and the mechanical pits. But wow, I am really excited to finally, after having worked on this for 2 years, here is my first updated Narcissus, the studio scale Alien Narcissus. This concludes the first episode of this build-up series. Episode 2 will detail the weathering and decal operations. It's another lengthy and informative addition to this anthology series. You'll be able to watch this model literally come to life with the added layers of detail. Catch you soon. I'd like to take this moment to thank you for clicking this video. I appreciate your support. Feel free to leave a comment. If you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.